All right, Aviwe Mtila, who is covering that particular story, he joins us now from Summer Place, and that's where that event is taking place. So, Aviwe, the Chief Investment Officer is very clear they're not going to bail out Eskom. What does the acting CEO of the pension fund have to say?
Well, that is correct, Butloli. I have been assured that the employees, Eskom employees' pensions are in safe hand with the EPPF. In fact, they've been at pains to try to explain that they are, in fact, a separate entity from the debt the debt that we're seeing spiral from Eskom itself. We understand experts have put it at around 500 billion rand, but we have been assured by the EPPF that their assets are well and in order. They have around 147 billion rand worth of assets, but I am actually going to catch up with Shafiq Abrahams now, who is the acting CEO, just to understand where, in fact, that money has been invested. Thank you very much for joining us at eNCA, but where are you investing this money?
Thank you. Let me start by saying the Eskom Pension and Provident Fund is South Africa's largest private pension fund, serving just under 85,000 beneficiaries, both active and retired membership. We have about 147 billion rand of assets under management, which we are aimed at underwriting or aimed at investing for the purposes of the members. Our investment policy and strategy provides for 60% of our assets to be invested locally in domestic markets, 30% in global markets, and then 10% in Africa.
Now let's touch on that 30% in global markets. I understand it is largely invested in London. It is managed in London and in New York. Couldn't it be managed back home?
So the global mandate provides access to markets across Europe, UK, US, and Asia as well. Access to those markets the skills that provide access to the markets are really concentrated in London and in New York. And so we enter those markets via London and New York. However, we've just returned from a roadshow where we've met with partners both in the US and the UK to see how can we bring back skills into the country. And so we are pleased to announce today that part of one of 4 initiatives is a global mandate initiative that will look at how we expose local asset managers to the skills required to access those global markets. So we're making some headway in that area.
Now, looking at South Africa's current economic climate, it is, of course, ailing. We've seen the worst decline in 10 years in the first quarter. I just want to find out, how are the Eskom employees' pensions faring in this tough economic climate?
Yes, we are in a low return environment, locally and globally. Globally, maybe offset by rand weakness, so we're getting some favor in terms of the rand weakness on the global mandate. However, locally, yes, it is the investment returns are low. At the same time, we want to re-emphasize that we take a long-term view. Our members' liability are long-term, so 10-year is the number we look for. And while we manage on the long-term, we want to assure members that our funding level sits at 113%, and that provides for all scenarios and potential contingencies. So when we've valued the liabilities, added all the potential contingencies that we could have, we still sitting at 113%, and that's one of the very favorable funding level locally and internationally. So we're very confident about the funding level and the security of the fund.
Now, your Chief Investment Officer, Aviwe Mtila, did assure us earlier that if Eskom were to come cap in hand, they wouldn't receive that bailout. But I want that assurance from you as the acting CEO so we can hold you accountable one day should that happen.
Yes. So the Eskom Pension and Provident Fund is a separate legal entity registered and governed by the Pension Fund Act and is accountable to the Financial Services Conduct Authority. And key to that governance is the investment policy and strategy, which defines what type of investments you can do and when you can make such certain investments. Now, in terms of that policy and strategy, it defines what assets we can invest in. As we stand right now, we've got about 1.4% of our portfolio in Eskom bonds, which have been underwritten by the government and have state guarantees behind them. For us, that's an acceptable exposure, and we don't have any intention at this stage to increase that exposure.
Well, that is, of course, Shafiq Abrahams, the acting CEO of the EPPF, giving us another guarantee that if Eskom were to come cap in hand, they wouldn't receive a bailout. Well, at least they'd be able to receive not more than 5% of the assets of the EPPF. We do understand the assets are around 147 billion rand at the moment. And we did also get indication that in the current economic climate, the tough economic climate that the country is facing now, while they might be while receiving low returns, they are in fact in a good standing. That the employees of Eskom's pensions are in a good standing.